Welcome back to Operation Freedom, folks. I'm Dr. Dave Janda, broadcasting from our ancillary bunker linked to our main Freedom Bunker in the People's Republic of Ann Arbor, here live for you every Sunday from 2 to 5 Eastern, 24/7 at davejanda.com. The Freedom Light is always on for you with extra shows, content, guests, analysis, archives to all of our shows. Become a member of our Freedom family. You will not be disappointed, but you will be educated and empowered. And the plan is then for you to take that information that I cannot provide on a radio broadcast or on a social media platform. You will take that secure information that we provide at davejanda.com and network it to anyone and everyone you know. Last half hour, we had Commander Scott Snow logged over 2,000 hours in a fighters, ran the operations for the Top Gun program and for the Pacific Fleet naval operations and marine operations, aviation-wise. He talked to you about what really happened with the F-35. You will not get that from any other source. And that is an example of what we do at davejanda.com. My next guest is also a very unique individual who provides information for your financial freedom and economic well-being that, well, you'll never get through the bought-off lamestream fake media. He is an incredibly courageous individual who's been on the tip of the spear on the financial freedom front for many years. Bill Holter, after a lengthy career in financial services, if you will, retired, but he really didn't, in 2006, and moved his family out of the United States. Good timing, considering what was coming in 2007 and 2008. He then returned in 2011 and currently makes his home in the great state of Texas. He joined Miles Franklin, MILESFRANKLIN.com, as an associate writer and posted commentary there for years. Bill is a precious metals broker with Miles Franklin, and he's also one of the best forensic economic analysts in the world. And might I say, he is a pain in the side to the banksters, the globalist cult, because the information he provides puts you far ahead of that financial curve that ends in a brick wall with the smashing, shattering of your financial freedom. He also has a website, Bill Holter, Holter, BillHolter.com, chock full of great information. It's my honor to welcome back Bill Holter. Bill, welcome back to the Operation Freedom Show and platform.
Thanks for having me back, Dave.
Bill, I want to start with a quote from a former president, James Garfield. He was the 20th president of the United States. Here's what he said, quote, "Whoever controls the volume of money in our country is absolute master of all industry and commerce. When you realize that the entire system is very easily controlled one way or another by a few powerful men at the top, you will not have to be told how periods of inflation and depression originate," end quote. Actually, very soon after he made that statement, Bill, he was assassinated. Bill, your take.
What a shock that he was assassinated. That is the primary reason for the existence of the Federal Reserve. And some people do know, many don't. The Federal Reserve is not a federal agency. It is private. And it was created, I believe, December 23rd or 24th of 1913, when there was not enough congressmen to vote it down. It was basically done in the middle of the night.
Bill, over the years, you have told us that we were headed financially, our country and frankly the world's economy was headed off a cliff, and that it would be a credit-linked event that people finally come to the realization of what was going on and that would bring the system down. I bring that up, Bill, because just recently, the United States debt, at least that folks are willing to talk about, has surged to over $33 trillion. In addition, there's $17.1 trillion in United States household debt, a record 12 trillion with a T in mortgages in the United States. There's a record 1.6 trillion in the United States in auto loan debt. There is a record 1.6 trillion in the United States in student loan debt. And there's a record $1 trillion in United States credit card debt. Bill, those figures tell me that everything you've been telling us for all these years has now come to the forefront and the bell has rung. Am I off on that assessment?
No, you're right. Here we are. I mean, we're exactly where we were going to be mathematically. And it's interesting, Dave, just in the last, I believe, 3 months, the federal debt rose by $8 trillion. And it took 200 years to create the first $1 trillion, the first 200 years of the country. Mm-hmm. We're at the point now where the debt cannot be paid back. So there will be a default. Now, whether that default is non-payment, and yeah, of course, there's going to be non-payment of commercial credit, auto loans, mortgages, et cetera, will there be a default for non-payment of federal debt? Probably not. What they'll do is they'll just print the money. And printing the money will make the dollar worthless. So right there, I've said for many, many years that we would experience inflation and deflation at the same time. Mm-hmm. Inflation of the things you need to live and deflation of the things you have. And that's the mathematical setup right here and now.
So, Bill, take us through what you see happening to the end of the year and then for several months after the end of the year. Play this out for us, Bill, because too many people, I believe, are under the impression that this will all work itself out. Bill, it's impossible to work itself out from a number standpoint. Your take.
Right, exactly. Mathematically, it cannot work itself out because the debt is not payable. My thought is before the end of the year, you will see an equity market collapse. You've already seen the volume in real estate just completely dry up. You're also seeing some serious softness. And here's some anecdotal evidence. I lived up in New England for many, many years, my first 30 years of my life. And I used to like to go up to New Hampshire this time of the year, first week or so of October. If you didn't have a room booked by the middle of July, or certainly no later than July 31st, you weren't going to find a room. And I got a wild hair the other day thinking I'd kind of like to go back up there and see the fall foliage. There are rooms everywhere available. And that tells me that there's no money on the street. The average guy or the average person is basically just going through the motions and treading water. But I see this thing coming to a head right here and now.
So, Bill, it's interesting you say that because we are seeing a system breakdown across the board, right? We saw this BRICS meeting occur at the end of August, where now they've admitted Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates immediately, and then adding Egypt and Iran and several other countries starting the beginning of the year. Many people say, well, this isn't a big thing. Well, no, Bill, I think it's an enormous thing because at these meetings, they're talking about a trading currency platform that has physical structure to it, backing such as gold, silver, oil, natural gas. Bill, to me, that's the death knell for the United States dollar. Now, is my analysis wrong on that?
No, you're absolutely correct. It is a huge event, and I guess the best way to describe it, it is a power shift. You can call it a geopolitical reset, if you will. The power is moving from west to east, and I've said this all along that the power follows the flow of gold. And the flow of gold has been going from west to east for about 20 years. So, basically, the West, headed by the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency, is losing power, losing control.
And Bill, when you talk about this flow from west to east, this is very, very interesting. And you've said this for such a long time. But Bill, in the past week, maybe week and a half, we've seen much higher prices on physical exchanges in Shanghai for gold and silver than the paper manipulated markets in the east, or in the west, for example, in London, in New York. Bill, and we're not just talking a little difference, we're talking big price differentials. Educate our listeners on the importance of that and what it portends.
Well, yeah, I think the premium now is like $40 to $50 an ounce in gold. And this is a very recent event. This just started about 10 days ago. And what this tells me is that the supply is not available in the West. The East, the Chinese, et cetera, have been purchasing gold from the West for many years and having it delivered east. And what this tells me is that the supply is not available in the West, so they're turning within to buy gold, and that's pushing the premium far above the paper prices that the West believes to be a correct price, which is being shown to not be a correct price.
So how does this play out then, Bill?
It plays out with a failure to deliver from both COMEX and LBMA. And once there's a failure to deliver, it basically shows that the contracts are worthless because they can't be delivered on, and it will spread from silver and gold. It will spread to all other commodities. It brings into question the validity of futures contracts.
This would be a reset of the highest order, wouldn't it, Bill?
Yeah, it would be a disaster. Basically, it will be a complete loss of confidence. And what is credit? Would you lend money to someone that you know couldn't pay you back?
No.
No. The only way you would do it is if you had confidence that you'd get paid back. And the entire Western system runs on confidence, and confidence is about to break.
Which ultimately, as you state and imply, would be a disruption, an enormous disruption of supply chains across the board.
Well, yeah, because the supply chains, and when we're talking supply chains, we're talking about food. We're talking about all kinds of manufactured parts. When the supply chain is disrupted, all you have to do is disrupt one facet of a loaf of bread or a microchip or a car or what have you, and there's no final product. So you will see shortages of everyday goods and everyday food.
Folks, we're speaking with Bill Holter, Holter, BillHolter.com. So, Bill, as you survey the landscape, is this in your career? I mentioned in your introduction, right? You in 2006 saw problems and said, whoa, got to make some changes here. The changes you're seeing now in 2023, are they the same, less, or greater or significantly greater than the changes that made you make some moves in 2006?
They're the same problems and then many more problems, but the scope of the problems are many multiples of where we were back in 2006, 2007. and understand that the response to the 2008-2009 great financial crisis, they didn't fix anything. All they did was paper it over by throwing money at it. So the problems are still there, the exact same problems: too much leverage, too much debt, but on a much grander scale, and it's going to make the collapse that much worse.
And we still hear the cult members saying, "Oh, we're looking for a soft landing. There won't be a recession." Well, no, there won't be. There won't be a recession. There'll be the worst depression in history. Is that an overstate? Is that hyperbole, what I just said, Bill?
No, not at all. That's exactly what's going to happen. I think it would be a good idea for people to go back and look at what actually happened in 1987 with the stock market crash. And that was the first bubble after going off the gold standard. It was the first true, bubble that burst. And what happened there was you saw interest rates pretty much rise almost the entire year 1987. And then we got into August, we got into September and October, and rates really spiked. They had bottomed around 6.9 to 7% on the 30-year Treasury and ran all the way up to 10.45%. So rates ran higher by, call it 3.5 percentage points, but it was off of a base of 7. This time around, you've got the 10-year Treasury at 4.5%, and if you go back just a little over 2 years ago, the rate was 0.6%. So we've had a 3.5% plus, almost 4% rise in interest rates, but that's off of a base of 0.6%. These higher rates are going to blow up everything.
So, Bill, let's talk about what people do. What do people need to do to protect their financial freedom, their economic well-being with this situation unfolding as it is?
Well, financially, you have to get out of the system. You cannot have counterparties between you and your money. And counterparties are banks, brokers, insurance companies, anyone that's holding your money, anyone that's between you and the ability to get at your money, because they're going to fail. And when they fail, your money's gone. People will say, "Oh, but there's FDIC." Well, FDIC in their charter, I think in 2014, wrote there won't be any more bailouts. There will be bail-ins. And a bail-in means they're going to take your money to make the bank whole. So what you want to do is, if you own stocks, get the certificates. Tell your broker you want the certificate sent to you. That way, if the broker goes down, you hold the stock. With bank money, purchase gold and silver. Hold it yourself. There's no one between you and your capital. And then from a personal standpoint, you want to be as self-sufficient as you possibly can be. Have food, have sources of food, have water, be able to clean water, have power, the ability to create your own power, electricity. You want to become as self-sufficient as possible, because we will get to the point where you're going to dial 911 and you probably won't even get a recording. It'll just ring.
Bill, when we look, when you have your finger on the pulse 24/7 on the physical gold and silver market in our country and around the world, where are we with availability? Where are we, with supply? Where are we with demand? Where are we with premiums?
Premiums have come down. They were very, very high earlier in the year. And oddly enough, I'm going to tell you that it looks to me like the retail demand is I'm not going to say light. I mean, it's normal, but it's nowhere near where we were earlier in the year. So that the demand has slackened from earlier in the year, and there does seem to be ample supply. I did do a fairly large order in junk silver about 2 weeks ago, and we bought basically everything that was available. But junk is a different animal because it's not minted. It hasn't been minted since 1965. for. And the U.S. Mint did ramp up their production of Silver Eagles, so the premiums have come down and there is availability. But the question is, are they going to produce through November and December, or are they going to stop production like they have for the past few years, which I suspect they will? The time to buy insurance is when you can afford it and when it's available, because once things start to break, gold and silver will go into hiding, and it'll be too late. You will not be able to protect yourself in that manner.
So one of the people that has been on the paper manipulation side of the equation, or entities, is J.P. Morgan Chase, and the CEO of that is Jamie Dimon, as we've discussed before. Here's what he said this week. Again, this is kind of a heads up, right? They're going to tell us they're about to flush the toilet while we're in the shower. Americans are making a huge mistake to believe certain booming economy narratives, Jamie Dimon. J.P. Morgan Chase CEO Jamie Dimon told a financial conference this past week that people who assume that the U.S. economy will continue to boom for years on the back of consumer strength are making, quote, a huge mistake, end quote. Bill, that's a big heads up from that guy.
Well, Dave, think about it. The elites have, if you want to call it a code of ethics, they believe that they have to warn you ahead of time. And if you don't listen to the warning, it's your fault. I mean, they know what's coming, and you've been warned.
So, Bill, in our last minute and a half together today, educate our listeners in how they can follow you on a regular basis and how they can get in touch with you.
Oh, sure. You can go to billholter.com. There is a contact icon on the site, or you can contact me through my business email. It's bholter@hotmail.com.